listening to the Informed Traveler Radio Show, and we start our show this week giving you some tips and advice about crossing the border into the U.S., and for that we called upon Cassandra Fultz, who is a regulated Canadian immigration consultant with IMI Group. Hi, Cassandra.
Hi there.
So let's talk about crossing the border into the United States from Canada. A lot of this is just common sense, and a lot of it has to do with just being cooperative and respectful, because when it comes right down to it, I guess border guards can pretty much do whatever they want. So let's just talk about some of the do's and don'ts, and a lot of it's just common sense, isn't it?
That's exactly right. You're right about all of that. And the thing that people need to consider most heavily is that entering the United States as a foreign national is a privilege, not a right. No one is entitled to enter the United States except United States citizens.
Mm-hmm. And we should remember that, and we should have all our documents in a row, shouldn't we? Updated passport is so obvious, but how many times do people forget that, or they don't know that?
Or they don't know it's expired.
Mm-hmm.
Always double-check these things well before your trip in anticipation of crossing the border.
Is the difference between air travel and travel by land? Still the criteria is the same, but is it the way that you get into the United States different at all?
No. As a foreign national, you do need a valid passport to cross the border either by air, land, or sea. Americans have what's called actually a passport card, which they can use to enter Canada by land or by sea, but you cannot fly with that.
Now, it gets kind of dicey when you're traveling with children, especially single parents, or if one parent decides to take their kids on a holiday. It can get dicey, and you better have your papers in order for that, right?
Right. That's correct.
So what would you need for that then?
So the best thing to do when you're traveling with a child, if both parents are traveling together with their children, then all the children need valid travel documents, i.e. a passport. Mm-hmm. But if a parent is traveling without the other parent and they do have the child with them, then it's the best practice to have a consent letter from the other parent. It's best if it's notarized, indicating that this other parent is truly the one who gave consent for the child to travel, that can be presented at the border.
And then this doesn't have, how often does it have to be updated? Can I have one that's a couple of years old and it still be okay? Or should I be getting it updated regularly, or when circumstances change?
Well, definitely when circumstances change, mm-hmm. but it's best practice to have something that's less than a year old. If a consent letter has a date that's like 5 years ago, if I were a border officer, I would be a little bit suspicious of that. So, being allowed entry into the U.S. is completely discretionary on the part of the border officer. Mm-hmm. So you want to make sure your documents are current and valid.
So I'm looking on the do's and don'ts, your tips on making a smoother process getting into the United States, and one of the things on there. Don't say more than you need to. A lot of people are guilty of this, right? They just be quiet.
This is true. People do tend to run on because when you cross the border, it can tend to make you nervous, mm-hmm. and this is common for everyone. It's the same regardless of which country you're a national of. It happens coming back. It's just the same for everyone. But you want to answer all the questions directly, be truthful and honest, mm-hmm. and but you don't need to give your life story.
Very true. And I'm sure a lot of border guards don't want to hear it anyway.
No, they don't. They have a big, long line behind you. They want to hear what's relevant, and what's relevant is the answer to the question that they're asking. Mm-hmm. Obviously, don't dodge or evade the question because that's never a good idea. But, just answer directly and make sure that your answer is complete and clear and easy to understand.
So there's a lot of confusion these days about cell phones and mobile devices and electronic devices, and whether or not border guards on either side of the border can search your cell phone. What is your rights when it comes to that?
So that's a good question. And this applies to crossing either side of the border, entering the United States or entering Canada. Border guards on both sides are entitled to search your personal electronic devices. So cell phones, computers, it's all part of the inspection that you are undergoing, okay? So if you don't want your cell phone examined, don't bring it or wipe it before you come to the border. If you don't want your laptop computer examined, don't bring it with you.
And what if I say, I don't know what my password is, or you won't give the password to get into your device? Can they just take it?
I would not advise to do that, first of all, because if you don't allow them to enter your device, then what will happen is they will most likely deny you entry to the United States or to Canada. Okay, so that's the same as declining to answer a question. You don't have to answer a question that they ask you, but basically you're withdrawing your admission. You're withdrawing your application for admission to the border. So if you don't answer, if you don't provide them the password, if you don't let them examine it, then you're not going to get in the country.
Good advice. Really all has to do with being polite and cooperative, and should be no problem, right?
Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. The thing to keep in mind is that these border guards have such a heavy, grave responsibility, and they're just doing their jobs. They're trying to keep all of us safe, and you can help them do that by answering, forthrightly and being clear with your answers.
Good advice. Cassandra Foltz is a regulated Canadian immigration consultant with IMI Group. The website is imigroup.com. Thank you for your time, Cassandra.
Thank you so much for having me.